Hi, this is Scott with ClaySys. What we'll be taking a look at today with this video are some of the built-in functions that you can use to manipulate or parse string data in your ClaySys app form. For instance, you may have a field on your form that a user would enter a number value into that field, and you want to ensure that that field is always formatted as, let's say, currency. We'll show you the built-in function for formatting a field as a numeric value. It may be currency, or it may be just a general number with a specific number of decimal places, whatever you need. We'll also take a look at some trim functions we have. You may want to ensure again that a string entered by a user doesn't contain any specific characters at the beginning or ending of that string. Usually that's a way to check for spaces, to ensure there's no spaces at the beginning or ending of a string. We'll show you how to implement those here with ClaySys. We'll also take a look at some other string manipulation functions, like seeing if a string contains a specific character or word, the length of a string, replacing characters again or words, converting a string to all upper or all lowercase characters. We'll take a look at some of those. And then finally, we'll be looking at a real-world example. You may know that when you sign into, let's say, SharePoint Online, under the covers, what you're actually getting when you sign in there is a claim. And that claim is what's called decorated. It contains the type of claim it is, whether it's a form-based authentication, the membership that you have. It contains the user ID, the domain, and that's one long string. And you may have a scenario where what you need to get from that string is just that user's name. So we'll show you how to do that by bringing together a number of these string manipulation functions to parse out of a string like that just the user's name. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to begin today with looking at the format numeric function that you have available to you at ClaySys. So I'm just going to click this button here. I've predefined some rules here to get us started to save us some time. So I'm going to put in a value of 10 into that field. And then down here, if I click this button, you'll see that that 10 is now going to be formatted as $10. And you can see that. So what we're doing there is using a function called format numeric. And let me just switch over to design view and show you that quickly. And you can see here, this is the rule that fires when I click that button along the side of the text box. And the function itself is called format numeric. It only takes 2 arguments. You pass it in the value that you want to format, so in this case, where is that coming from, either hard-coded or from the field, and then what format do you want? And these formats are basically the standard Microsoft numeric formats. And those numeric formats come from this MSDN article, so you might want to make a note of that. Let me just show you that very quickly so you can see what different types of arguments that you have available to you for formatting numbers with your ClaySys app forms. So if we scroll down here into this table, you can see I had done the C with a 2, meaning 2 decimal places. There's also a decimal, there's exponential, fixed point, general, so on and so forth. So these are all the different custom formats that you can use in your ClaySys app form to format your data. Okay, so let's move on now to some of the string manipulation functions. The first thing that I'll do is replace our numeric value with some generic text in that text box. And what we're going to look at right now are 3 different trim functions that you have available to you in ClaySys app forms. There's a trim start, a trim end, and a trim function. The trim start is exactly that. It trims off specific characters from the front of a string. The trim end will trim specific characters from the end of a string. And then the trim function itself will do that for both ends, both beginning and ending. So let's assume, again, for a moment, that you want to ensure that when the data entered by your user is finally submitted to your data store, whether it be a database or SharePoint, what have you, that there are no spaces at the beginning or ending of the text that they've entered. So I'm going to go ahead and put a space at the beginning and also one here at the end. So now we'll take a look at the trim start function. And when I click this button, you'll see that the text was copied down, but I still have the space at the end, as you can see, but it is indeed removed from the beginning of that string. Let's do the same thing now with trim end. Once again, now I've removed the space from the ending, but it still remains at the beginning of that string. And then finally, we'll do both by calling the trim function with this button, and you can see that indeed both spaces are gone. Now this can be something that you can use to search for and remove any characters. It's not just spaces, but that's just usually the most popular, that you want to make sure that there's no spaces in a string that a user's entered at the beginning or the ending. So let's go ahead and take a look how that's implemented briefly here with ClaySys app forms. I'll switch over again to design view. And let's take a look at trim start first. So here's my rule for that. The function name is simply called trim start. And it takes two arguments. The field or the data that you want to trim, and then what character do you want to remove. So in this case, again, I wanted to remove spaces, so I just have quote, quote. You could make sure that there's no underscores or dashes or whatever character you may need to ensure is not there. That is what you would place in that particular argument. And this holds true for the trim end as well. Again, simply called trim end, what data you want to trim, and then what value that you're looking for. And finally, for the trim function itself, same identical thing. So it's that easy to implement and then remove characters that you may want to ensure are not in the data that the user is entering. Okay, so the next two things that we'll look at here are finding a character or a word in a string. So you can see above the string test that we're using here today, test completed today, and then today's date. What I'm looking for here is I'm going to be using the contains function to see if that string contains the word today. So in that case, we know that it does. So this returns a Boolean, a true or a false. So if I click that button now, you'll see that it does indeed return true. Now, if I go up here and manipulate this data to remove that word today and then redo this, you will see that it does return false. So that's a quick check if you wanted to find out if a string contains a specific character or a word before you take another action. Okay, so I wanted to reset that. Now we'll go on and look at getIndex. And what this is going to return is a numeric value of where that character starts or where that position of that character is in the string. Or if you're looking for a word, it returns the starting position of that word. So in this case, we're looking for the word today. The position that gets returned from this function will be where is the T in the word today. All right, so let's go ahead and run that. And you can see it returns 15. We'll go up here and just check real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, and it does indeed start at 15. So that function returns the index or the position of a character within a string of data. So let's go ahead and briefly take a look at both of those. And we'll switch over to design view. So here is the contains rule. Again, the function name again is simply contains. And the first argument is, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a character or a word? What string you're looking for? And then the second argument is what value, where is that string data that you want to search for that value? That's all that is. And then that returns again whether or not it's there or not. It's a Boolean true or false. And then for getIndex, again, function name is simply getIndex. In this case, the first argument is a string that you want to search. In other words, that sample string that we had up there. And then what are we looking for? We're looking for the word today. But this takes a third argument. Where do I want to start? In other words, where do I want to start searching? At the beginning of that string? Or do I want to start searching somewhere in the middle at a specific value? That kind of thing. So you'll see later on, this is where we use this function in our real world example, where you can make that dynamic and look for certain things and start searching after you find that particular character. But in this case, for what we just did so far, we're going to start searching at the beginning of that string, position 0, and then look for the word today and return that position, the index of that particular word. All right. Now we're going to move on to some other string manipulation functions like getting the length of a string, replacing characters, things like that. So let's take a look at those. So the next string manipulation function we'll take a look at is called string length, and it returns exactly what the name implies, the length of whatever string you've passed to the function. So in this case, you'll see the rule in just a moment, we're passing to it what's in this text box, so the length of that string. And if I run that function now, you'll see it returns a length of 32. Now, if I modify that string by removing the date, the space, and the comma, rerun that function, it does indeed update and now gives us just a total length of 20. So if you have a need to find the length of a string so that you can perform some other operation, the function you use to do that with ClaySys AppForms is string length. You will also see shortly in our real-world example how that is used so that we can manipulate and find specific data within that string. We'll take a look at that shortly. String replace, again, what the name implies, looking for a specific value within a string and then replacing it with something else. Let me go ahead and reset our default text. In this case, what I've done with my rule is tell it to look at this string, search for the word today, and then replace it with the word tomorrow. So let's run that. And you can see that it did find it, and there it is replaced with the word tomorrow. So let's take a look at both of those in our ClaySys AppForms Designer. Here's the rule for string length. As I mentioned, the name of that function is string length, and it takes just the one argument. What string do you want to find the length of? Whether it be hard-coded or from a text box like we're doing here. Very easy to use. The replace function actually takes 3 arguments. Again, the name of the function is string replace. The first argument is which string are you going to search? Again, this is our text box with the default string. What do you want to search for? In this case, we're searching for a word. And then what do you want to replace it with? The string replace function can commonly be used if you want to ensure users, for instance, don't put spaces in any of their naming conventions. Maybe you search for a space and then replace it with, let's say, an underscore. Okay, so let's move on now to some of our other string manipulation functions for actually changing character casing in words. So you can see up here our default string. I'm just going to get rid of our text here for this particular example. Get rid of my date, I should say. I have just the first letter of test capitalized and then completed them today is all lowercase. So our string to capitalize word function simply capitalizes the first letter in each word in the sentence. So I can run that now, and you'll see that all 3 tests completed and today now all have a capital letter. String to lower, exactly what the name implies. It will take all of this text up here and convert it all to lowercase. Any uppercase characters will get converted to lowercase. So I'll run that, and you can see that was all lower. And finally, the opposite, string to upper, converting every letter in the string to uppercase, and there it is completed. Now, string to sentence case, that is also basically going to return first character in the sentence to an uppercase and then the rest to lowercase. And as you can see, it also then puts a period on the end, assuming that's the end of your sentence. So that's how the string to sentence case works. So let's take a look at those briefly, and then we'll come back to substring, because that's where we're going to start now getting into our real-world example, how to use that function. That's going to go a little bit in depth. So let's take a look at these 4 different functions very briefly. So we'll start to string to capitalize word. Once again, only takes 1 argument, as these functions do, because we're simply going to say pass it a string and then make each word in that string the first letter capitalized. String to lower, again, that's the function. Pass it whichever string you want it to convert to everything to lowercase. Again, we reverse that to upper. Function is string to upper, passing in our value. And finally, string to sentence case. Again, passing it our string, and then this will, let's say you had all uppercase, it would convert the first character of the first word to uppercase, assume that the end of that is your string or your sentence, and then put a period at the end of that. All right, let's go back now and start looking at substring. So the substring function is really quite a powerful function to be able to allow you to parse or pull portions of characters from a specific string. So as an example, when I was talking earlier when we started this demo, we're going to be looking at a real-world example of how to pull the username from a SharePoint Online claim ID. Let's use that briefly here. Let me reset our default text so you can see what I'm referring to. So in this case, when we get to our example, our real-world example, we're going to be looking to pull out just this information, just the username. But for now, just to demonstrate the substring function for you, the substring function takes 3 arguments. It takes a starting position. In other words, where do you want to start searching a string? At position 0, the beginning, or do you want to start searching someplace else within the string? And you will see how we do that here in just a few minutes. It then takes the length. How many characters do you want to return from that string? That can be hard-coded, which is what I've done here for this first part of the demo. In this case, I'm hard-coding 10 characters that I want to return. And then finally, the third argument is which string are we searching? So if I go ahead and run that, there you can see it returns the first 10 characters of that string up there. So let's briefly just take a look at that in the AppForms designer. And we'll switch over to our substring function. There again, it's called simply substring. The first argument, let me just bring up the IntelliSense. The first argument to the substring function is where are you starting at? Where do you want to start the search? Position 0 is the front of the string. It can be anything past that up to the length of the string. It cannot exceed the length. The next argument is how much data do you want to return? In characters. Do you want to return the first 5, 10, 20? Again, is it dynamic? You're specifying that as the length of the string you want to return. And then finally, which string are we searching? So those are the 3 arguments you take for the substring function. Now let's take a look at how we use this for pulling back specific data from, in this case, a SharePoint Online claim ID. In just a few minutes, I'm going to show you how I did these two last examples, but I want to show you the results first. So the first test that I'm going to show you here is where we parse the string, starting at the pipe in here, because again, all I want is the username. So the first part of this returns everything after the pipe. That's the parsing of the string with no ending. I want to start at the pipe, give me everything past it. So if I run this now, you'll see that that does indeed return testuser@domain.allmicrosoft.com. The next one, which is a little bit more involved, is I want to start at the pipe, I want the user's name, and I want to stop at the ampersand. Right? And I want everything in between those two characters. So if I run that here, you will see indeed that's all I get back. So let's now take a look at how I actually built those expressions. And for that, I'm actually going to load up a different form where I've started to explain this in more detail. And I hope this helps bring this a little bit more clarity to this. So let's open that form. All right, let me check that out. And let me show you first. Let me just run this form to show you this. So here is where I've hard-coded that claim ID. So the first part of this is we need to start at the index of the pipe. In other words, what is the position, the numeric position of the pipe in that particular string? Right? Now you notice there are two pipes. There is this one right after the F, and then there's this one after the membership. Well, we want to start at the one after the membership. So I'll show you that again in a moment, but let's go ahead and get the index of that pipe. And you can see that's 18. If we count over 18 characters, that would be that position. So now, if again I run this starting at that pipe, this is what we get back, which is the same as before, everything after the pipe. So that's part of what we need. Now, step 2 is we need to stop at the @ symbol in here. We only want to get the data between the pipe and the @ symbol. So what is the position or the index of the @ symbol? And I called it ampersand by mistake. And that is 27. So again, if we count over from the left, that is at position 27. So now, when I run this final command, I'm getting back everything that is between the pipe and that particular @ symbol. So if I run that, we return just test user. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty to see exactly how this is done. This is going to get a little bit involved. I'll probably go a little bit slower than you might like, but I want to try and hopefully get this across to you so that you can easily implement this in your own solutions. All right, let's go to our rules, and let's first start with getting the index of the pipe. So remember we had a getIndex function, and if we take a look at that IntelliSense again so we can see, remember it takes 3 arguments. The string that we're searching, what are we looking for, and where do we start? So the name of this field that contains my claim ID from SharePoint Online is called txt value. So let's go back over here again. So the field that I'm searching is that field, txt value. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the pipe, but remember there are 2 of them in that string. So how do I get it to give me the position of the second one? Well, remember, the third argument here in the getIndex function is where do I start? So what I can now do is I can call the getIndex function here again inside of itself, passing the same information, but this time find the word membership starting at position 0. The way these run, the inner functions get run first. So in essence, we're going to run this function, search my string, look for the word membership starting at position 0, and that, remember, that will return the position of the letter M, the index of that letter M in the word membership. That becomes now our starting position for our outside getIndex function. That's the start index. So whatever is returned from this internal getIndex function it runs, in other words, where is the position of the M in membership, that is now the starting position for our outer getIndex. Okay? And then I do a +1 on that just so that it gets me past the pipe. So let's look at that one more time now in run mode. So remember, 2 getIndex functions here to return the second pipe. The inner function is going to start at position 0, find the word membership, and return to me the index of that M. That becomes the starting position for the outer getIndex function. So when the outer getIndex function runs, again, we are going to start at this position, find the pipe within the string, and that's how we get the position of the second pipe in that string. So again, I'll run that, and you can see it's 18. So if I just quickly count those over, 18 is what we have there as that position. So a little bit involved, but we used the same function embedded within itself to give us a dynamic starting point. Okay, let's now look at the next part of this. So here is how I was getting, again, I called it the ampersand, it's the @ symbol. In this case, all I'm doing is saying, give me the index. And let's bring up the IntelliSense here so we can look at this. The string I'm searching is the same string. In this case, I'm finding the @ symbol. And where do I want to start? Now, in this case, I really could have started at 0 because there is only one @ symbol in this particular string. Right? There is no other. But I did the same functionality here is I told it to start at the word membership, starting at the beginning, and then look for the @ symbol. So where is that @ symbol? So let's go ahead and preview that one more time. So we'll get the index of the pipe, and now there is the result of that. Here is the index of our ampersand at 27. So the last piece of this is bringing it all together to say, give me everything between this position and this position. Okay, let's take a look at that. So our final result. Again, this gets a little bit involved, so I'll try and repeat some of this stuff. So we're starting out with a substring. So finally we're using our substring function, because remember, we want a part of that string, and the part we want is the username. So what does the substring function take as arguments again? The first one is the starting index. The second argument is how long it is, and then what are we actually searching. So the starting index. Remember, the starting index is what we've just done here for this, right? It is this right here. So I basically just copied that. Oops, sorry. Copy that. Let's go down here. You can see there is that same command, including the embedded getIndex, right? There is that. So that's where I'm starting. I am now starting at that M in membership, and then getting the position of the pipe that's after the word membership. So that gives me now the starting position for my substring function. And again, I'm going one past that. So I'm going past the pipe, and that's where I start. Now, the second part of the substring function, again, let's look at that again. The second part is the length. How many characters now do I need to get? Well, I need to get to the position of that @ symbol. Okay, now remember, here again, I just copied this basically. Here's my getIndex function again, looking for the @ symbol. But in this case, I did change it up a little bit. I said I'm starting at 0, because again, it doesn't really matter. There's only one @ symbol in the string. So what I need to do here though, the length of this needs to be the difference between where the @ symbol is and where the pipe symbol is. I hope that makes sense. We just need the difference of those two. So my length is actually a mathematical expression. It is the position of the @ symbol minus, and I'm using the same expression again, I just copy pasted, the position of the pipe. Right? That is my length, just that amount of characters. And then finally, the final argument to the substring function is which string am I searching? Okay, so let's preview that. So again, here is my string. So remember, I'm going to do the final one here. I want to start at the index of that pipe plus 1. That's where I'm starting my search. Then I need to find the index of this, and then give me the difference between this position and this position, between the @ symbol and the pipe. So when I run that, it now returns for me just test user. So I hope that makes sense. Let me go back one more time into design view and just run through that expression one more time. Okay, so we use our substring function. And again, this is where it gets very dynamic, because you can embed other functions to get those starting and ending positions. So again, substring function takes 3 arguments: a starting index, where do you want to start searching from, how long, how many of those characters do you want to return, and then finally, what string are you searching? So our starting index is the position of the pipe that is after the word membership. Okay, so this part of our expression is part 1. That is our starting expression right there. Now we need a length. So what we need to get is an index value of where our ampersand is, okay, minus, I call it ampersand again, the @ symbol, minus the position of that second pipe. So there is that. That is, this whole thing here is now our second argument, which is the length. So the position of the @ symbol minus the position of the pipe, that's our length. And that needs to go over to here just so you can see the whole thing. There we go. And then finally, the third argument for our substring is what are we searching? These functions, again, are very powerful in allowing you to pull out specific pieces of data, looking for strings and replacing those if necessary, parsing data to pull out just a name or a character. Very powerful information that you can retrieve using these built-in string manipulation functions. I hope you found this video to be beneficial. We are going to be producing more of these how-to type videos in the coming weeks and months, so be sure to check our website often for new demonstrations. You can find all of our videos at http://www.clasys.com/pages/viewdemo.aspx. If there is a video you would like to see that is currently not on our site, please let us know by sending an email to info@claysys.com, and we will do our best to get one created for you. Again, I hope you found this video to be of benefit, and thank you for using ClaySys AppForms.